Geek Vibes Nation has made the switch to Anchor. Let me tell you a little bit about Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more great podcast networks. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Top 10 by Geek Vibes Nation. As always, I'm your host, Tia, and I have an amazing guest with me this evening. I have Juwaan. How are you? I know that you have been podding all day, so thank you for taking the time to do this with me.
Absolutely, not a problem at all, Tia. Glad to be here.
Yes, and normally we have Brittany on, but Brittany is actually getting married probably at this exact moment. So you can all go to her Twitter page at ittybitty_Brit0 and congratulate her. But, I'm more than happy to have the El Presidente of Geek Vibes Nation gracing me with his presence this evening.
I appreciate it. And huge congrats to Brittany. She had posted, I think, like a photo shoot of, I think, the wedding dress yesterday.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
She looks great. Huge congrats to her. Hopefully she's able to come out this year for New York Comic Con. Hopefully.
Hopefully New York Comic Con will still happen because I know that they're now doing San Diego Comic Con at home, which I'm glad they're doing. When they first announced that it was being canceled, I said to myself, why not do it virtually? There's no reason to not release the things that you had wanted to in a physical sense.
Right. No, you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of the trailers might still be put off because most of the releases are for next year. So they might hold off a little bit. Maybe the Brazil con might be where we get all the good stuff. But yeah, so who knows? Fingers crossed.
That is very true. But on this week's Top 10, actually, Juwaan suggested it, and I really liked the subject. It is simply going to be the top 10 directors. Because I feel like we talk so many times about how there's an actor that you like and that's what draws you to a movie when those movies couldn't really ever come to fruition, obviously, if it weren't for the directors who have their own taste, their own styles, even their own picks of cast members. So yeah, I really like this one. I put together which I felt bad that there wasn't as many like old school directors. I felt like I should have put them in just for like say nostalgic sake, but in reality I'm just going to pick who I want to pick and who I like seeing their movies of.
Yeah, no, this is your list. This isn't a list for the people. This is what you like. So you just I picked who I like. And I don't really care what people think. I picked who my favorite directors were, and I hope you like them because I care about your opinion. But everybody else.
Well, that's the thing is that there's so many times where Brittany and I are doing our top 10 of something, and we'll post it, and we'll see people comment underneath and go, "Well, is this in the list?" I'm like, no, because that isn't to me nor Brittany's or whomever is my guest on for that day. That's not our taste. So that's just who I'm picking right now.
Yeah, I mean, you've only let me down with that once when you didn't have the...
Yeah, what was it? I feel like it was you I'm talking about that I let you down.
No, Joel's been, he's voiced his concerns also, but for me, it was not having the warehouse scene.
Oh, that's right.
I'll still never understand that, but I respected your list, but not having that there, I could never accept that to you.
We just needed you on that week, apparently. We'll make another one.
I blame myself. I should have been on. You're absolutely right. I blame myself.
We'll do a part 2 and it'll all be good. But before we get this on in a while, but we actually like to plug our friends over at the Main Damie family, specifically their D&D podcast, Stranger Damies. Anthony Delvecchio was kind enough to give me a little bit of a write-up to promote, since I absolutely know nothing about D&D. So, for all those listening, Stranger Damies is the ongoing real play D&D podcast from the Main Damie family of podcasts. Join them every Wednesday as the wild stallions traverse the many traps and tribulations that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has to throw in their path. There's elves, weird half-dragon people, conspiracies to uncover, and more references to the 1980s than Ready Player One. Subscribe to the podcast on all podcast services by searching Stranger Damies, and make sure you follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Stranger Damies. Stranger Damies is also a proud member of Geek Vibes Nation, and you can, of course, find us at geekvibesnation.com. So, yeah.
Shout out to them. Dan just joined us for Star Wars Saturday, so.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. He could only do like a few minutes, but he popped in.
I need to listen to that, even though I'm not as well versed in Star Wars as you guys are. I definitely need to listen in on that and see what you guys are talking about, because there's some stuff brewing in the Star Wars community right now.
That is for sure. That is definitely for sure, Tia.
But let's get right into this top 10. I, of course, always like to start with my guest. So, Juwaan, why don't you give us your number 10 on our top 10 directors?
All right. My number 10 is someone that does not belong at number 10, but we always say that where you put them in isn't necessarily where they're ranked at. So I'm going Francis Ford Coppola. I believe I'm saying his last name pretty wrong. I'm not even going to do that. But this man is the reason I am into film. This man is the reason why I paid attention to the artistry of movies. And if anyone is unfamiliar of what Mr. Francis did for our movie culture, he was the director of all three Godfathers. And if anyone knows me, they know I do not think any movie will ever be made that will ever come close to those two masterpieces. I don't know what he was thinking about the third one, but I'll chalk that up to fatigue. But the first two Godfathers are masterful. They are just pure beauties of cinema. The opening I could recite. It's so quotable. I don't know how many times I've told I've told my sister nothing will happen to her as long as my mom is alive, and like she still doesn't get it, and I'm like,
oh,
no. But no, there's just so much about the Godfather that helped cultivate me into a fan of film that I have become. He also did Apocalypse Now, that came out in '79. That is definitely spoken on very highly. And I also believe, if I'm reading this correctly, he did Rainmaker with Matt Damon. So, I mean, the guy has done a lot of stuff, but there's something special about a guy who's done Godfather that is revered as the greatest one or two movies ever. So that's what I'm putting up first.
Yeah, there's this joke, I just thought about it, where it was something, I'm not saying it verbatim, but it's like, if you don't know if someone's Italian, don't worry, they'll tell you it constantly. And that's how I feel, because I was about to be like, well, I'm Italian, so obviously we've watched The Godfather. I will always say that my grandfather always tells me how he got so worked up seeing The Godfather in theater when Sonny was beating the shit out of his sister's husband, and he was just like, go get him, Sonny. And it's really one of those really masterful movies that is just done so well. There's so many components to it that to really come out with something like that and then do it again, as you said, don't know what was going on with the third one, but to do that at least twice, there's something to be said about that. And also a movie, say like Apocalypse Now, is highly revered as one of the greats in filmmaking history. And it's funny because when I was putting together my list, I was looking at my list going, should I put Francis Ford Coppola on it? But I had others, so I'm glad that at least you put him on, so he has a rightful place on this list.
Yeah, no, there's no way I wasn't going to put him on. Like I said, his directing it shaped me, so there was no way he was going to be left off of this list. Not at all. Not with me here. Not with me here.
It's so funny too, looking back at the Godfather trilogy and how, say, like young Al Pacino was, and you literally were seeing, say, the start of his career right there. Whereas with oh my God, why did I suddenly Marlon Brando? That was later on in his career. So you're seeing like kind of like the end. Not I don't want to say the end of Marlon Brando's career, because I certainly think that he did do things after that, but almost the end of his career, and then the start of, again, one of the greatest actors of all time. And that was done with the help of Francis Ford Coppola.
Yep, completely agree with you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, The Godfather was based on a book, right?
I believe so. Let me double check.
Ooh, why did that suddenly start going? My bad, guys. All of a sudden, my TV wanted to start playing. Things are possessed here. Yeah. I do apologize.
Yes, it was based off of a book.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, definitely. Francis Ford Coppola absolutely deserves to be on this list. He's one of the greats. And if you are not into, say, film like that, because there's your casual moviegoer, we talk about them all the time, but we talk about them in the sense of, say, like superhero movies. But it's like, if you're the casual moviegoer, you need to at least do a little bit of research and know the greats of film. To me, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's not for everybody. It's an acquired taste. It takes a lot to be able to sit through both of the Godfathers, and I always tell people, as much as I poop all over the third one, it's incomplete if you don't watch all three of them. And it's very hard to get somebody of today to sit through almost 4 hours worth of just greatness. But if they're willing to, by all means, please do. But I do understand that it's not easy to sit through. Like, I can't go back and watch The Irishman. That movie just felt so long. But I would tell people, give it at least one go around. Like, give it at least one shot to try to watch it. But Godfather is a quintessential movie. Anyone that uses the words film should have seen. And if they have not, they don't understand the word film. You have to have seen those first two movies.
To me, it's like The Godfather fits into the genre of gangster movie, but when you think of gangster, you're thinking of constant shoot 'em up type of things, where Godfather, there's a lot of dialogue. They let scenes breathe and really just kind of a mirror of actual story, as opposed to just filling it with gunfights.
Right.
Yeah.
I completely. And he made stroking a cat on his lap the coolest thing ever. Like, I remember when I first saw it, I was like, I hate cats, but like towards like halfway through that first movie, I was like, I'm gonna get me a cat. I'm gonna go ahead and get me a cat just so I could spin around in my chair and just start petting its head and say something devious. So like I said, the movie is so quotable. It's so quotable. And it impacts today's film. And I'd say it impacts today's culture. A lot of people go back to that movie. It's still being talked about. We're talking about it now. So, yeah, that's definitely why I put Francis.
And Juwaan and I, before we move on, I'll say we always disagree with me saying that The Godfather should never be touched. But Juwaan always likes to say that if it were led by Leonardo DiCaprio, he would be completely fine with it.
Yep, in a heartbeat. Wouldn't even question it if Leo said, hey, I want to be young Don Corleone. Yeah, Yeah, let's do it. Sign me up. Go ahead and do it. And I guarantee you, everybody that's like, no, I don't think they should do it. Once Leo gives that performance, we'll all be like, okay, all right.
I'd be very like against it at first, but I would see it, and probably like it because Leo does good work. So,
And
uh,
and what's dope, Tia, is I guarantee you, if they ever did it, they'd bring John Bernthal in. John.
oh yeah.
He would 100% be in that movie somehow.
I don't know what say like John Bernthal's ethnicity is, but that nose definitely like solidifies him in like a gangster movie like that.
Yeah, he definitely would be in it.
He would definitely
be debated. He would 100% be in that.
I mean, he's in the Sopranos like prequel movie. Of course, he's going to be in it. Which did that get pushed? By the way, I know that's so random. It did.
Next July, I believe.
Oh God, I can't. That's going to make me mad. All right, next. Let's move on to number 9. Great pick for the number 10, Juwaan. I'm going to do the director Steve McQueen. So again, not the actor Steve McQueen, the director. I had to look and see if there was like any like differences in their like stage names, and it's not. It's literally like Steve McQueen, and I was like, okay. I don't know if that was done on purpose, if the parents liked the actor, but anyway, Steve McQueen. I will say as a disclaimer, I've never seen Widows yet, but definitely on my list to do. But so Steve McQueen, for those who don't know, he, I think, became more of a household name when he did the movie 12 Years a Slave, which won an Oscar and, was really talked about. I saw that movie maybe the last week that it was in theaters. I saw it in one of those, like one of those theaters that literally shows like 2 movies a night, that type of thing. And there was one thing that really stood out to me, and it's that Steve McQueen has a style, and this is coming from someone who's seen his other movies such as Shame and Hunger. By the way, Hunger, Shame, and 12 Years a Slave all had Michael Fassbender in it, so I'm very surprised that Michael Fassbender was not in Widows. So maybe there was just a schedule conflict there with some Magneto stuff. But in Steve McQueen's, and I know, Juwaan, you've never seen 12 Years a Slave, but I don't know if you've ever seen Shame or Hunger. Okay. Steve McQueen has this thing where each movie, he focuses the camera on a scene, and there's no music going on, nothing at all. It's just the noise, the natural ambiance, and it forces you kind of to really just see what the hell is going on in that moment. So, spoiler alert for anyone who's never seen 12 Years a Slave, it's just the moment that pops up to me. There's unfortunately a moment in it where the main character goes to get lynched, but because the people who are doing it get called away, he's literally on the tips of his toes, struggling to breathe. And you would think at that point it's just going to be quick, it's just going to move away from that, or there's going to be some sort of thing to kind of like distract you. And it's like, no. Steve McQueen had like a solid minute. And a minute may seem like, oh, it's just a minute, but it's so long, and it just stands there, and you hear like the birds chirping in the background, you hear people chatting a little, and then you hear him gasping for air. And I know that's such like a stark, thing, but he has that in all of his movies. So I don't know if he did it in Widows, but he certainly did it in those 3 films. And to me, there's just something so great about his storytelling. It's so raw. Shame was about, a guy with a sex addiction. Hunger was about during the time where the British were literally imprisoning Irish people for being Irish, and them going on hunger strike in prison. So to me, Steve McQueen is one of the best directors. I see his name slapped on something, and I think that it has to be good, which is why when Widows didn't get as great of reviews, I was very shocked about that. But Juwaan, as someone who hasn't seen really his films, is there anything that really you can comment on about him?
I did not enjoy Widows. So,
okay.
I was shocked when you said his name, because I immediately went, one movie of his I saw I did not like. The execution just it wasn't executed properly. And as you stated before, I have not seen 12 Years a Slave. I do not watch slavery movies.
Which I totally respect, you know, so I wouldn't sit here and tell you to see them, but I would tell you to, if you can, try to watch Shame and try to watch Hunger.
Yeah, no, those I'll definitely check out. I think we have now, over the past 40 to 50 years, I think we have built a culture to where we celebrate slavery movies, but we don't go a step above that and try to fix some of the same similar issues that still exist. The fact that one of the 50 states just made lynching illegal and we're in 2020 is insane. So I don't like to celebrate it. So I don't see them. But I've heard nothing but great things. It's what started Lupita's career.
Right.
So, you know, I definitely recognize how powerful that movie was, and having a black director do it is equally as powerful. But I can't watch them. But no, Widows to me, great cast, poor execution. And a really disgusting kiss between Viola Davis and Liam Neeson. Oh,
I heard about that.
Almost ruined kissing for me. Like I don't think I ever kiss again. That's gross. But no, it didn't have the execution that it needed. But no, those other two movies I'll definitely put on my list. You know, Tia, every day you give me a longer list of stuff to watch. So I'll add that to it. But yeah, I think he's only 4 or 5 movies deep in his career. One of them being just as people say, just a masterpiece of a movie in 12 Years a Slave. But I'll definitely check out those other two, because Widows was not it. It was not a good intro to me.
What it sounds like to me, because if you watch Shame and you watch Hunger, not that they're indie movies, because they're certainly not, but they do have maybe a more of a room to kind of be an indie movie without being an indie movie, kind of just telling their tale. But I think that maybe 12 Years a Slave, because it won Oscars, because it was such a big production, maybe kind of put pressure on Steve McQueen to maybe put out more of what is considered a blockbuster Hollywood movie, as opposed to just telling a story that he wanted to tell. Because it did surprise me when I saw the trailer for Widows, how action-packed it looked, and I'm like, that's not really Steve McQueen's style, at least for the previous 3 films that I've seen. So again, it sucks that, you know, say people like you and other people who've not seen his previous films, that's what you see of him, and you're like, he must be a terrible director, because Widows was awful. And it's like, oh no, that hurts me to even hear that.
Yeah, no, that's why when you said his name, I was like, oh, Tia is not gonna like what I have to say. But no, I am fair enough to realize how special of a movie 12 Years a Slave is. I want to make sure I'm being very clear. I'm not saying 12 Years a Slave was not great or not good. I just have not seen it. And I refuse to, but it has nothing to do with the director. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I understand that that's a great movie. It did a lot for a lot of different people's careers. I just have not seen it. So those other 2 movies I promise you, I will definitely check out, so I can give a better reaction to his body of work. Because to me, I already put 12 Years a Slave up there just because of the accolades, right? So I'm like, if those other 2 movies are a hit, I could say he's 3 out of 4. That's not bad. I can respect that. As opposed to, I haven't seen 3 of them, and the one that I did see,
you weren't a fan of. It's because he didn't have Michael Fassbender with him. Apparently, Michael Fassbender was his golden card there.
Why? If he had to remove that nasty kiss and maybe made the ending a little better, we'd be having a totally different conversation.
Viola Davis kissing Michael Fassbender.
I think I could have gotten behind that, Tia.
As opposed to Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Liam Neeson, like, regardless even of the comments that he made, which I think those came out during the time of the movie, so that already kind of probably put people off. But he also, in general, doesn't look like a very kissable person. So no one wants to see someone as, like, grand as Viola Davis kissing pasty-looking Liam Neeson.
Not at all. Not at all, Tia. It was gross.
Yeah, it sounds gross. But my number 9 pick here is Steve McQueen. Juwaan, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is the man that legit makes me want to write a script every time he releases a project. And that is the great, uncomparable David Fincher.
Oh, yeah.
David Fincher is a masterful director. Not only has he done Mindhunter, he also directed some of the episodes of House of Cards that I am currently watching. He did The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Social Network, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, The Zodiac, which does not get enough credit.
I just rewatched that the other day, by the way.
Really good. It was
really good.
He did Fight Club, which we already know about Fight Club. And he also did The Panic Room with Jodie Foster that doesn't get enough credit. That was really good. And obviously, what we all know this great man by, Gone Girl. Gone Girl that stars my dad, Ben Affleck. David Fincher handles suspense dramas like no one I've ever seen. I can't even compare his style of art to anyone. It's so unique. It's always breathtaking. It's always like a gasp moment. Tia, you also watched Mindhunter because we were mad at him for not continuing.
I was just going to say I have a little bit of beef, though, with him for that.
We got to beef him. We're definitely waiting outside at the Sandlot for him to get out. But no, that show itself is just so breathtaking because you look at it and you kind of go, it doesn't even necessarily have to show you the murders. It doesn't have to show you people dying. It's just the idea of investigating how someone can be that deranged is what's really like, oh my goodness. And then we know Gone Girl, spoiler alert, but the movie's been out for, I want to say, like 8 years now. But
yeah.
Just to see how far she was willing to go is insane. So I love that. I love everything about David Fincher. David Fincher, honestly, Tia, was who I wanted to direct the Batman.
Oh, that would have been good.
And yes, part of it was his relationship with Ben at the time. But even when Ben was seeming like he was probably on his way out before they confirmed Matt Reeves, I was like, David Fincher. Like, the guy does suspense drama. Batman is like a suspense drama. I don't know how he would handle the fantasy aspect of it, but I'm like, David Fincher would be so perfect. But all due respect to Matt Reeves. But yeah, David Fincher, he should do like a, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but his name is The Question.
Okay.
That character is very much a, what do you call it? What do you call those people that like investigate like the aliens and Bigfoot, conspiracy theorists?
Yeah.
The Question is very much a conspiracy theorist. David Fincher would be able to do that in his sleep.
Yeah, he'd be really good.
So I'm like, that would be perfect for him. But I love David Fincher. There was no way he was not gonna make it on my list, the short list that I drew up. I love everything he's done so far. And when I was watching House of Cards and I saw his name pop up, I was like, all right, you got me. All right, let's see what he has for me. And the episodes that he was part of were some of my favorite episodes. So David Fincher definitely belongs in here. And if you guys haven't seen Panic Room, go see Panic Room. Jodie Foster was amazing. Forrest Whitaker was amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll double check. I think the little girl was a young, what's her name from Twilight?
Kristen Stewart?
I think that was a young Kristen Stewart. I'll double check. Yeah, it was Kristen Stewart.
Wow.
It was Kristen Stewart. And people don't remember this, Jared Leto was in that movie also.
Jared Leto is in a lot of movies, and people just kind of like to think that he didn't exist prior to playing the Joker.
Well, problem is he's a musician, so I think a lot of people remember him more so from being a musician than an
Right.
actor. But that's why when he had his breakout role where he won an Oscar, a lot of people were shocked because it's like, wait a minute, isn't that the singer? And it's like, yeah, he just got an Oscar? Yeah, like he acts also. It's like, that's weird. I did not expect that. But yeah, it's a young Kristen Stewart that played the little girl in that movie. So yeah, check out Panic Room.
Yeah, I love you for putting David Fincher on this. I don't know if you know this about me. I don't know anyone who's listening knows if they know this about me. I still say that Fight Club is my favorite movie of all time. I'm not trying to say that to be trendy or be like just because I love David Fincher. That is literally my answer to any time it's like, well, what's your favorite movie of all time? Fight Club. It's always going to be Fight Club. That's just such a great movie. It's still a great movie. There's so many things to dissect. Each time I watch it, I've watched it like a million times now, and I feel like every time I watch it, I learn something new about it. I figure out something new about it. But I also loved The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. To me, that stood out as one of the best movies that I've seen. It pisses me off to this day that we did not get a sequel with Rooney Mara in it. And then you go and bring out some failed sequel with Claire Voy, and I will never understand that. But that Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movie was so powerful when it came out. I was just like, holy crap. And it's funny about Gone Girl. So funny story. I tried to watch that like twice before I actually watched it. I started it off and I was bored as shit, right? And I remember, no. Okay, so I remember like, and I only never got past the first 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember telling Kelly, like, I can't get through Gone Girl, but everyone talks about Gone Girl, but I can't get through it. And she's like, Tia, get through the first 10 minutes. I swear it'll be worth it. And I sat there with my jaw like on the floor, and now I consider it one of the best movies that I've ever seen because it really is this just masterful telling. You know, it's a little slow in the beginning. You know, it's a lot of, you know, dialogue and shit, but if you get past that, holy crap, you know, the story unraveling, like you said, what this woman was willing to do when you find out the real twist in it, you know, because at first you're like, Ben Affleck is a scumbag. I mean, to a degree, he was still kind of a scumbag, considering,
sure.
he was banging like a 19-year-old or something. But her, and then she kills poor Neil Patrick, you know, Harris, or, you know, I'm just like, oh, God. But yeah, and then Mindhunter. Mindhunter was just like, I will say, like, I will still always have beef with him for not wanting to come back for a third one. And when we reported that they had let go of everyone from their contracts because David Fincher wasn't, you know, in the mood to come back for a third one just yet because he's working on his movie Mank, I was like, I don't like that, David Fincher. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, it was frustrating to get past it. But I believe he made it very clear that he's not saying he won't do another season. It's just
Right.
priority right now. So I mean, as long as you can still get the same people back, I have no problem with it. But yeah, he makes the kind of movies that I enjoy. I love slow burns.
Yeah.
I love dialogue-driven movies. As much as people think I am a action aholic, I'm not. I love slow burn, very talkative shows and movies. Again, when you're raised on The Godfather, that is not an action-packed, rolling down the window, just starting shooting at people. It's very much of a drama, long-winded, conversationalist piece. And I love that. So to me, when I saw Gone Girl, I'm like, I like how slow this is. It's slow. Because to me, what I hate, Tia, is a movie that's suspenseful, that the dialogue goes so fast that you're like, oh, damn, what did he say? Like, let me go back. Gone Girl was so slow, so methodical, that you picked up on everything. So, like, nothing went over your head if you were paying attention. Everything was like this. You got it. You got it. You got it. So to me, perfect. David Fincher, genius. I'm upset he hasn't done more movies. That's not enough. That's not a long enough rap sheet for someone that's as smart as that man. he needs at least 6 movies every 4 years.
You know,
Make it happen, David Fincher.
because though there's so much in his films, it's like he has to take his time with them. So I appreciate that. Hopefully, Mank is just as good, considering we didn't get Mindhunter season 3 because of it. But no, I mean, yeah, you are right. A lot of his movies are a lot of dialogue. They're very slow burn, but they pay off. Like, I know that Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is based on a book, so you know you could say that that was based, you know, because of the book, but still the way he presented that story was very slow with these little moments in between of like something really dark happening.
Right.
And I don't know, I just love that. That made me love Daniel Craig. Not him being in James Bond. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo made me love Daniel Craig.
Oh yeah, no, it's the other way around for me. James Bond made me love Daniel Craig, and then like the cherry on top was Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. But masterful movie, and it wasn't afraid to go there. I believe that movie wasn't that the movie where the guy had the lady tied up on the bed.
Yeah, so Rooney Mara's character, Lisbeth, the main character, literally the girl with the dragon tattoo, is raped by her guardian because she's technically a ward of the state, and it was very horrific. I feel like David Fincher wouldn't necessarily get away with that nowadays, since people have tried to shy away from showing sexual assault on screen. But it was very harrowing. It was very difficult to watch, but that's the point. It's rape. But then that scene made it where I loved when her character then tattooed rapist on his chest. And she was like, if you try and get it removed, I'm going to tattoo it on your forehead next.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's why I said it, to me, a director is only as good as the envelope that they try to put. Like, to me, when you box yourself in, it's like you can kind of feel that they were, holding back. David Fincher doesn't hold back. He does not hold back. You're right. It wouldn't exist now because they would consider it more so of you glorifying it,
right?
Bringing awareness to it. So I get it, but the point of it is to make you uncomfortable enough to be aware that it's happening. And that's what I got from that, was that it's happening out here. Like, pay attention. Like, it's not just this myth that's just talked about. People are being abused out here, and awareness is really the only way to start making change about it.
Yeah, and I'll say really quick that, I have no problem with the scene being in the movie, because I feel like then there's this like subculture of people who do glorify sexual assault. They make it seem like it's sexier or something. You know what I mean? You watch these movies and they're like, they act as if the girl's kind of like, she's holding back, but she really does want him to do it or something like that. And it's like, no, this was like...
Spartacus made me uncomfortable in that.
Yeah.
Like, even though it was obviously trying to showcase how it was back then, that is the highest form of glorifying.
Right.
Because it kind of did make it seem like only 2% of that show was consensual, it felt like. The rest of it was kind of just like, no, I own you. And it was just like, okay. That
I feel like
doesn't exist today.
I feel like it was Jessica Jones season 1 that kind of set the precedence of you don't need to show sexual assault to be able to handle a sexual assault storyline, because when the first season of Jessica Jones came out, that is what got praised so much about it, even from people who I know who weren't into the superhero subculture.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
I will say one more thing before we move on. Jared Leto was in Fight Club.
Yes, he was. Jared Leto is like the janitor of movies. Like, he just happens to always be there. It's like you turn your head and you're like, why are you here?
He also seems to be the person that they love to put in for people to beat the shit out of, because Fight Club, he got the shit beat out of him. American Psycho got killed in it. So, they like putting him in when they need something to, like, beat up, apparently.
Yeah, no, 100%. They're like, hey, we need someone to just be bloody. You mind, Jared? Nah, I don't mind. Come on.
Yeah, it's like I'm good. I'm good. I will take the number 7, and I will put Bong Joon-ho on the list. So for those who don't know who Bong Joon-ho is, he is the South Korean director of the film Parasite that literally won an Oscar this past year. But besides that, he has also done movies such as Snowpiercer, which is a personal favorite of mine. We did a top 10 even with me, Brittany, and one of the main Damie members, Mark. He also is behind, oh God, why am I now losing track of the shit that he's been in? The Host, he has also done, I think that was kind of one of his first movies, and I probably should have been more prepared and not like having my actual list here of the things that he's done. He also did this movie on Netflix called Okja, which I will admit isn't my favorite by him, but I still could see like the style that he always likes to keep in his films. But yeah, so mostly for me, it's mostly The Host, Snowpiercer, and Parasite. And Bong Joon-ho's filmmaking style always seems to be something where it's very like suspended belief, and he always has this message pretty much of like classism going in. There's always like a social commentary on it, such as with Parasite, pretty much rich versus the poor. Snowpiercer is, you know, people who, and for anyone who's seen Snowpiercer, to me, the line that always sums it up is when Ed Harris's character tells Chris Evans' character, you know, some people are just, you know, you have to be happy with the status that you are given in life. And Chris Evans' character goes, that's what people in the best, you know, position always say to those who are in the worst position. And that just sums it up. So to me, his movies always have these social messages behind them, even with something as Okja, which was a little funky, to be honest, but still wanted to make a commentary on how people pretty much, I think it, to me, the message behind it was more commenting on like how gluttonous we are with food in this world. And if you've seen Okja, I think you can kind of agree with that. But yeah, I don't know, Juwaan, if you've really seen anything by Bong Joon-ho, if you've watched Parasite. Okay. Yeah. You know, it's weird, right? It's definitely a little strange. The ending especially is a little odd, but that is totally Bong Joon-ho's style there. To me, I don't mind at all that you have to watch most of his movies in subtitles, just because I put subtitles on even for English speaking shit, just because people whisper and I need to hear what, you know, they're saying, so it doesn't bother me in the least bit. So to me, I just think that Bong Joon-ho is a really talented director. I'm happy that his Oscar has given him awareness throughout the world. And I think that he's right. People need to kind of open up their minds a little more to international films, because you're losing out on a whole slew of movies that are really good just simply because people say, oh, I don't want to read when I watch movies. So yeah, number 7 is Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho, I put in the same box I put Matt Reeves in, to where don't have a large enough body of work. Like to me, when I'm breaking down like great directors, you have to do one or two things. You either have to have a long body of work that kind of shows how consistent you are, or let's say if you've only done like 4 movies, 1 or 2 out of those 4 movies have to be like all-time great. And albeit I do think for our time, Parasite and Snowpiercer are probably in most people's top 10, top 15, top 20. I kind of want to see if he's able to do it again. Like, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Same with Matt Reeves. Like, Matt Reeves does have Let Me In is 100% in my top 10 all-time movies. Chloe Grace, story of vampire. I love it. Gives me chills and scares the hell out of me every time I watch it. And then, of course, Planet of the Apes. And I'm like, all right, you've been able to do that twice. Great. I need to see it again. Because that third time lets me know that those first 2 were legitimate. So I'm curious what Bong Joon-ho does next. But I do want to recognize Parasite for all of its glory, Snowpiercer for all of its glory. He definitely deserves a seat at this table. So I'm not refuting it. I'm just saying I am curious to see what he does next.
Did you ever see Snowpiercer?
Nope.
Oh, it's one of Chris Evans' best movies, honestly. Again, when I sit there and I say that people don't realize how good of an actor Chris Evans are, of course, now we're going to put Defending Jacob on that list. I always put the movie Puncture, and I always put Snowpiercer because he led that movie in a really great way that, you know, he didn't at all feel like Captain America. It was Snowpiercer was good enough that they now have given it its own TV series. You know, at least at the moment, people are coming out and saying, like, hey, I really enjoyed this film, to the point where they're like, oh, shit, like, let's make a series on it now all these years later. So, and Parasite, to me, I didn't watch it before the Oscars. I watched it afterwards. I didn't go to the movies to see it, but when I watched it, it was one of those films that once I shut it off, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I think that's how you kind of know that a movie resonated with you. So even if while you're watching it, you aren't particularly like thinking, oh my God, this movie's so amazing. But if afterwards you're sitting there and like me and my boyfriend talked about it for like days later, like days, we just like sat there and like deconstructed the movie, talked about the themes, what it meant when one person did this, because that is his style. He wants you to talk. He wants you to talk when he does these type of movies.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I've heard all the acclaim for both of those movies. And that's why I said I completely understand why he deserves a seat at the table. I'm always curious to see, can you do it again?
Yeah.
Can you do it again now that all the spotlight is on you? Because Snowpiercer didn't have anywhere near as much acclaim as Parasite did. So Parasite was your worldwide, your worldwide break. So let's see, now that the spotlight's on you, what's your next movie? So that's usually what I always pay attention to. Like Matt Reeves is gonna have to hit me with this the Batman, which I believe he will. But once he does that, I can then start to say, this is your clear pattern. So I now know what to look forward to anytime I hear, directed by Matt Reeves. I'm like, all right, I know your style now. I know what to look forward to. So that's usually what I look for. But I completely understand why he's on the list. But I just wanted to say I have him in that box with Matt Reeves. I got to see what their third movie is and how they decide to go about it, both coming off of big projects. Like Matt Reeves coming off the Batman, what are you going to do? Him coming off of Parasite, what are you going to do? So that's usually what I pay attention to.
I will say the one thing that I'll comment there is Mark pointed out when we were doing the top 10 moments from Snowpiercer that Snowpiercer was Bong Joon-ho's first English-speaking movie. It obviously starred Chris Evans and had a largely English-speaking cast. And it was picked up by the Weinstein Company, and it is kind of known even by Bong Joon-ho saying that Harvey Weinstein buried that movie. There's a huge reason why it didn't have as much of a box office claim. It isn't necessarily the critical response. It's that Weinstein buried the release, where it could be shown, when it could be shown, how many theaters it could be shown, largely try to interfere with Bong Joon-ho's filmmaking process, to the point where apparently the director had to make up certain things in order to get scenes to be like kept within the movie. Like there's this one movie that involves like a fish, right? And Bong Joon-ho really wanted to keep it in. Harvey Weinstein didn't. And Bong Joon-ho like made up that it's like something that traditional South Korean warriors do or something. And in reality, it isn't. He just did that so that he could keep it in. So I will say that that movie was largely interfered with by Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. No.
I mean, that's what
they don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, no. Absolutely not. But yeah, so that's my number 7. Juwan, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is, oh, nope, phone don't die yet. All right, number 6 is the great Quentin Tarantino.
He was on my list too.
It is a masterful director. I'm looking through his movies, and there's not one miss. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards, Django, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Hateful Eight, Jackie Brown, Death Proof, which doesn't get enough credit. Such a fun movie. And then obviously you go, he helped on Grindhouse, he helped on Natural Born Killers, Sin City, Hostel, which is oof, that is a movie. But yeah, sorry, seeing Hostel just spiraled.
Flashbacks.
Scared the hell out of me. But yes, Quentin Tarantino is very much like David Fincher in the idea of even in Kill Bill, which is an action movie, it is so riddled with so much damn dialogue. It is the only thing I've ever hated about Quentin Tarantino, that he will dialogue you to death. And it's like, Quentin, it's supposed to be an action movie. She doesn't have to talk like before she fights everybody. Just fight. Like I remember the end battle at the end, where Uma Thurman was taking on Lucy Liu. There was just so much talking in that shit. I'm like, oh my God. But he is a masterful director, and he carved out a lane that I honestly believe without Quentin Tarantino, there might not be no Robert Rodriguez. So much of Robert Rodriguez feels like Quentin Tarantino. But yeah, no, I love this man. Hateful Eight was beautifully done. A great way to do a whodunit.
And people really hate on the Hateful Eight.
I don't get how.
So much flack, and I don't know how.
I don't know how. Look, I'll say this for forever. If someone comes to me and goes, "It was just too much talking," I'll never disagree with that, ever. I get it. But it was so worth it when you got to the end and you were like, "Oh wow, I didn't see that coming." Okay. The Hateful Eight, Kill Bill 1 and 2. I'll never forget. My dad tells me all the time, sitting in the theater, the movie's ending, and then it's the cliffhanger of she has a daughter, and her daughter's alive. And it's like, what? Huh? Because you thought, she got her revenge. That was it. And then it's like, nope, she's got more to do. And he did not disappoint in that second one. And then you go, obviously, Pulp Fiction has the greatest dialogue probably in movie history. Within the first 25 minutes of that movie, the rest of the movie you can kind of throw away. That first 25 minutes. Reservoir Dogs, which is a movie that is legit nothing but talking. They're just standing around talking. But it's done so well. And then the movie that will forever be in my top 5, no movie will ever move it out of my top 5, Inglourious Bastards. Such a masterful movie. I loved everything about it. I still get chills, Tia, at the beginning of that movie, how Christoph Waltz is talking to the guy. And then he's like, where are they? And the guy points to the floorboard, and like he lets them have. And I loved how brilliant it was done. Brad Pitt was freaking amazing. Inglourious Bastards, top 5 of my all-time movies, will never move from that number 5 spot. Just like Godfather 2 will never move from number 1. My number 1 and number 5 are solidified. It's in that middle. That could be up
interchangeable.
For sure. But yeah, Quentin Tarantino deserves a spot on this list. That's not even to be debated. And I really hope his next movie isn't his last. I hope he just takes a long break and in like 5 years comes back with a masterpiece.
I can't disagree with you at all. Quentin Tarantino, to me, is just one of the greatest filmmakers ever. Every single movie of his is just this masterfully constructed film that, and you're right, like, first of all, to me personally, I think Inglourious Bastards is his best movie. And that's not shitting on any of the other movies. They're great movies. So on top of all these great movies, that is the cream of the crop. To me, that opening scene, absolutely. To me, the scene that always gets me is the one where Shoshana is speaking with Hans Lund in that little cafe, and she has to kind of pretend like she's someone else. And he walks away, and she completely starts hyperventilating. I'm like, holy crap. But there, in that movie alone, so many amazing scenes to touch upon. Again, I don't know where the hate for Hateful Eight comes, because I really enjoyed it. As you said, it's a cool spin on a whodunit. When you find out all of the details, it's really awesome. I remember I kind of spoiled it for myself. Brittany had seen it before me, and I was like, oh yeah, so how many people die in this? Because, you know, Quentin Tarantino loves to kill most of his cast off. And she's like, oh yeah, no, they all die. Everyone dies. So I'm like, no, but someone has to be left alive, right? She's like, no, no. They literally all die. And I'm like, oh, okay.
All die.
All die. I recently rewatched Django Unchained and just relived every single magical moment with that, with Jamie Foxx, again, Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio, and how despicable he was. You can't tell me that in that movie, to me, one of my favorite scenes is the one where Django at the end is looking all awesome, you know, in the, like, mansion, plantation, whatever, and he tells the two women, he's like, say goodbye to Leonardo DiCaprio's character's sister, I forget what her name is, like Miss Sarah or something, like, say goodbye to Miss Sarah, and they're like, goodbye, Miss Sarah, and then he just blasts her away, and I just thought that was, like, the greatest shit ever. But to me, and also Reservoir Dogs. I put, like, Inglourious Bastards and Reservoir Dogs, just because Reservoir Dogs was so great. Like, Steve Buscemi was awesome in it. Freaking the iconic ear cutting off scene. I mean, there's just so many amazing, iconic scenes in a Quentin Tarantino film. I love hearing that he had involvement with Natural Born Killers, because that also is one of my favorite movies of all time. I will say, I was not the biggest fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That I was not the biggest fan of. I like Brad Pitt in it. And of course, Leo always does a phenomenal job. But in general, I thought that it was just okay.
That's fair. I don't really have any arguments for that. Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add to that. I can't really argue. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I don't really have an argument to anyone who's kind of like, it was all right. I'm like, yeah, no, okay, yeah. No arguments here, but yeah, Quentin Tarantino is a master of everything. None of his movies feel the same. Jackie Brown definitely didn't feel like Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs didn't feel like Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction didn't feel like The Hateful Eight. I love that man. If I could ever sit down and just pick his brain, 5 minutes after I sat down, he would go, all right, you got to go. That's how much I would annoy him with just so many questions. But yeah, Quentin Tarantino, once people listen, they're going to be like, all right, Quentin made it. All right, cool. There's no way we wouldn't have Quentin on this.
There's no way that we wouldn't have him. Like, I see some people hating on him, and I'm like, okay, you're just doing it as a fad, pretty much, you know.
Sure.
It's fashionable to, but I will say I was a little disappointed to hear that he's not directing a Star Trek movie, just because that would have been so interesting. Like, what would a Star Trek movie by Quentin Tarantino even have looked like?
Death Everywhere.
Death Everywhere.
Death Everywhere.
Yeah, that's his thing.
And Samuel L. Jackson. That's what it would have been.
He really has been in, like, most of his movies. He's just, he does a new movie, and he's just like, ring, ring. Hey, Sam. But he's like, and Samuel L. Jackson's just like, yeah, I'll be there. Just tell me when to show up.
Not even, Tia. Not even. His agent, like, his agent will go, Sam, Quentin's on the phone. Just tell him yes. You don't even know what it is. Just tell him yes.
Just tell him yes.
Like, in Kill Bill, people gloss over it. He was the pianist at her wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just something as simple as that. In Inglourious Bastards, he was the narrator. Just something as simple as that. So Samuel Jackson's always like, what do you need me to do? You just want me to stand here? I'll do it. I'll do
Yeah.
it. I'll do it. So they have a great friendship. It reminds me of, remember how Rob Schneider was in almost every Adam Sandler movie?
Oh yeah. Rob
It's like,
Rob Rob Schneider definitely, but I feel like in that relationship, it was more of Rob Schneider like pestering Adam Sandler, like, so when are you coming out with a new movie? And it's
you're
like,
gonna pass me, right?
you're gonna pass him.
But to be fair, he has stolen the show a lot. So it's like it's been really good to have him. He's what made Big Daddy special for me. Arguing over the spelling contest that he had as a kid. But yeah, no, Samuel Jackson has been in, I want to say, majority, if not all, of Quentin Tarantino's most recent. I think the only one recently he hasn't is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And that
Which is very shocking.
Yeah, that could have been a scheduling conflict, or maybe he just didn't have anything for him. But Kill Bill in it, obviously, the whodunit, because he was the main character.
Hateful Eight, Pulp Fiction,
Django. Yeah, he's been in a majority of it. I think he was in Jackie Brown. I could be wrong, but I think he was in Jackie Brown. So I think there's only a handful of Quentin Tarantino movies he wasn't in, if that, maybe 3.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Quentin Tarantino deserves a spot on this list, but everybody knew that.
Everyone knew that, yeah, absolutely. We definitely did our duty in putting Quentin Tarantino on the top 10. I will go with number 5, and I'm going to do one that, again, I just want to put on just because I love his movies, and it's going to be Tim Burton, because to me, I love Tim Burton. I think that he is a great filmmaker. I think that his films, at least in the earlier age, kind of really, I don't know, so many kids like my age, we all grew up on, Nightmare Before Christmas. He did, some of the greatest Batman movies, Corpse Bride, frickin' just all of his, like, his style of, like, filmmaking and what he kind of loves to incorporate in his movies. I just love the, like, feel of it. And while I know that, some of his films aren't the greatest, and, the things that he's done, like, recently aren't, like, so much well received, I just have to sit there and I have to give credit where credit is due, because as someone who grew up loving, say, the whole gothicness of his films, such as Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, and considering how much of those type of films were so big in my childhood, I have to give credit to him, and I have to say that I enjoy his movies. So yeah, I'm putting Tim Burton on this list. As someone who is a huge Batman fan, what do you think of his Batman movies?
Yeah, no, I almost yelled at you. I got my directors mixed up. I don't know why, but I was thinking you were saying Joel Schumacher.
Oh God, no, never. Give me more credit there.
I almost left this show. But no, speaking of a director literally catering to one specific actor, Johnny Depp is in at least 85% of all of Tim Burton's movies. It's either him or her name is something Carter, Allie Carter.
Oh well, that was his wife, Helena Bonham Carter. So
there you go. Exactly, there you go. But yeah, one of those two are usually in all of his movies. If one isn't, the other is. But yeah, he's reinvented what it means to make a prototypical movie. No one's ever been able to do what Tim Burton has been able to do. Some may say that's a good thing. I choose to say I like people who choose to be drastically different. You go down, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands, Corpse of the Bride, Beetlejuice, Alice in Wonderland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sweeney Todd, Sleepy Hollow. I really enjoyed Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. If I'm saying that right, I really did enjoy that movie a lot. I think more than I should have, but I really did enjoy it. Dark Shadows, Frankenweenie. And obviously, I don't know why I'm skipping over it. It should be the one thing that I'm talking about. He gave us 89 and Batman Returns. So he makes it in my book. I mean, you do Batman and you do Batman right, you make it in my book. And he did those things. And I think I've seen 60% of his movies.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing to say about any of them. So I don't mind this one. I say, yeah, he makes it.
He also did a Planet of the Apes movie, but I don't think that.
No, Tia, that was horrible.
No, I never saw it, so I'm like, that doesn't connect with the recent ones, right? Like that.
No. The time they were doing that horrible Mark Wahlberg one.
God.
It's best we leave that out of his repertoire.
And I will say that definitely, like, his newer stuff is questionable, because he is, I think maybe some people would say, and you even kind of touched upon it, like a one-trick pony. But to me, as someone who gave us a fantastic Batman, I mean, literally the Catwoman that we all love and that, like, literally we all kind of, wish Zoe Kravitz to emulate is because of Tim Burton. Beetlejuice, which will forever be one of my favorite Michael Keaton roles, was him. And as I said, The Nightmare Before Christmas is a huge movie for me. If you grew up around my age and if you were part of the punk goth scene, you loved Tim Burton. You praised Tim Burton back in the day. So I couldn't have this list of top 10 directors and not put Tim Burton on it, even if perhaps he may be deserves to be a little lower on the list than I put the other directors.
No arguments here. I think he deserves the spot. Like I said, he did Batman 89, so that man's forever in infamy with me. So yeah.
I will say, I don't know if you know what the MoMA is, but it's the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And years ago, they had a Tim Burton exhibit. We went down there and we were waiting online, and I don't know, we ended up the line was so long, it was taking so long. We ended up befriending one of the security guards while literally online, and he kind of had us skip ahead to the front, so that was really cool. And we were able to see all of his stuff where he was literally drawing the caricatures from his films on paper napkins and shit. So just seeing even that experience and kind of getting a look into his mind was also really cool.
Yeah, no, I am definitely a fan of Tim Burton. And once I realized that it was not the
Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
He's actually next. That's my next pick, is Joel Schumacher.
See, I will leave.
I'm kidding.
You try to put him anywhere near me. I despise that man giving Batman bat nipples.
Yeah, no.
Gave him a bat credit card too. Like, what? You could trace where that comes from. That's so stupid. Anyway, God, I hate that man.
Don't worry, I won't get you any angrier than you are now thinking of Joel Schumacher.
Oh my God, he makes me sick. Oh.
But yeah, so number 5 is Tim Burton for me. Juwaan, what is your number 4?
All right, a lot of people are going to get mad with this, but I could care less. For my next pick, I am putting up a man many call my father. I call him my father also. Mr. Ben Affleck himself. This man is one of the brightest actors turned directors. Live by Night was a bit of a letdown. Argo was a masterpiece. The Town was a masterpiece. But the movie that made me really shake in my boots when it came to Ben and his directing was Gone, Baby, Gone. I don't know if it was his directing or if it was Casey Affleck's acting, but that movie was so freaking good. And I'm just sitting through that movie, watching in the theater with my dad. One, I thought to myself, it is long as shit. Even when it looks like the movie ends, you're like, all right, dang, that's crazy. That's crazy. The movie ends like that, and then it's like, oh nope, you thought we were gone? Another hour and a half. Wait, what? I thought this was over. I love Gone Baby Gone. It is in my top 10 favorite movies all time. As cringy as that movie is to watch because of its subject matter, I could go back and watch that movie anytime. That's how freaking good it is. But yeah, The Town, nothing I need to say about that. If anyone's seen The Town, you guys already know. Nothing I need to say about that. And Argo, we obviously know Argo. Live by Night was, I don't know if that was been frustrated with Warner Brothers around the Batman time. I know he wanted to get that movie made really badly, but it just didn't really pan out to what he wanted it to be. But I'm looking here. Argo, The Town, and Gone Baby Gone.
That's a great career.
That's a great 1-2-3 punch. That's a great 1-2-3 punch right there. You don't get any better than that. So Ben Affleck makes it on here. Yes, for anyone listening, you guys know I'm biased. He's my dad. But you cannot deny those 3 movies. Those are really, really, really good movies. So Ben Affleck makes it on this list for me.
It's so funny because when you think of directors, like I didn't even think of that. That didn't even cross my mind, and it should have, because he has directed some really great films, and I can't really argue with you. Even though you know that I'm not the biggest Ben Affleck fan. I watched Argo. I know you're just shaking your head there. I watched Argo for the first time, I think, towards the end of last year, right? And I found myself walking around going, Argo, fuck yourself, because I just loved that movie so much. That movie alone, I sat there and said, wow, Ben Affleck's a really good director. Because just to me, that movie alone solidified it for, not actor, director, because that movie solidified it for me. He was so phenomenal in it. That movie in general was done really well, and has my man in it, Scoot McNairy, so can't really fight with that. Oh no, but seriously, yeah. It's funny because Ben Affleck is a fantastic director, and correct me if I'm wrong, did he direct The Way Back, or did he just act in that?
I don't think he directed it. It's not listed in his credits. When I went to IMDb, I'll double check. I'll click on the movie and see what it says for The Way Back.
Okay.
He has a movie coming out called The Deep Water. All right, The Way Back. Here we go. Nope, it was Gavin O'Connor.
Okay.
They're really, really, really good friends, him and Gavin.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, freaking, it'd be nice if Ben Affleck could come out with another movie that he directed, because I think surely it would be a big success. Obviously, though, directing a movie is just a completely different beast than acting in a film, so that could be something that he's not really interested in doing just because of the gravity of what it takes. But you're going to kill me, by the way. I have never seen The Town. Well, all right, let me correct myself. I started it, but I forgot what I was doing that I couldn't finish it. But I do remember seeing that Jeremy Renner was not Jeremy Renner.
No, you're right.
Jeremy Renner was in it, and I was like, no, because yeah. But no, I mean, listen, I know you're shaking your head at me, and I do apologize completely, but maybe one day I'll check it out again. But besides that, I think that you're 100% correct. Ben Affleck deserves his place on this list.
Have you seen Gone Baby Gone?
No. I already established with you that I'm not the biggest Ben Affleck fan.
He's not in it. He only directed it, Tia. He's not in it.
Yeah, but anything with his name attached, I'm like, nah. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You and AJ are gonna give me a panic attack at some point. His level of hate for the CW and your level of hate for Ben Affleck is just.
I'm sorry, Juwaan. I really don't mean it.
You mean it. That's what hurts the most, yeah. You do mean it. You 100% mean it.
Well, I think I told you, though, that, like, I always sit there and say that I dislike Ben Affleck, but then my mom always points out to me, she's like, yeah, but you like a lot of the shit that he's in, like Argo and Gone Girl, and I'm like, yeah, I guess he has moments.
I can't. I don't even know what to say. I can't.
I'm sorry, Juwaan. I didn't mean to disappoint you as much as I did.
You do it so religiously when you talk about Ben, Tia. You do it so religiously when you talk about him.
I'm sorry, but yes, I will sit here and agree that Ben Affleck deserves to be on our top 10 list of directors. I'm going to move on to number 3, and I don't know if he's on your list. I wanted to grab him just in case he was, because I want to talk about him. And it's going to be Christopher Nolan. I think that Christopher Nolan is one of the best directors in modern day film, simply because of how, to me, consistent his career is. We started off with Memento, which to me is one of the best movies of all time, and kind of is the reason why I even like the actor Guy Pearce. I know that a lot of the things that he's in isn't that great, and, you know, people kind of talk smack about Guy Pearce, but my one thing will always be like, yeah, but he was in Memento. So, like, to me, he always gets a pass. He was in Memento. And to have movies like that, and then, of course, you know, I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I think that they were fantastic films. I went back not too long ago and rewatched all 3 movies, and I was like, yeah, holy shit, Christopher Nolan's, like, directing style. But then we have movies like Inception, which to me still confuses me to this day, and that is the absolute greatest thing about Christopher Nolan and his brother Jonathan Nolan. I also had to throw that in there. It must be a family thing. I don't know if you know this, but, like, Jonathan Nolan also has written on a lot of Christopher Nolan's movies, but then his brother Jonathan Nolan has written and also directed Westworld, which, if you're a fan of Westworld, especially season 2, was the most confusing thing on the face of the planet. And then, of course, Tenet looks like what the hell is going on in the first place. So to me, Christopher Nolan just has this really artful way of telling his stories and kind of leaving you questioning more. His movies will always have you leaving the movie theater really just sitting there and going, wait, did this happen, or what did this mean? And I appreciate that from a filmmaker, so I'm definitely putting Christopher Nolan down.
Yeah, no, he deserves a spot on this list. Not for what he did with the Dark Knight trilogy, but definitely
Agree, disagree.
in Memento. I wrote it down because there was another movie of his that I really, really, really loved. Let me see if I have it here. Oh yeah, Interstellar, Dunkirk.
Yeah, that's right. Dunkirk was great.
The Prestige, I loved. I love The Prestige. It doesn't get talked about enough, but yeah, I mean, this is the guy who does not have that large of a body of work. But Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Memento, The Prestige, and then those 3 movies you were talking about. You know, that's a great body of work. And he's very much a visionary and pushing I think he really made IMAX as fun as it is. He pushes the the envelope as much as he possibly can, and I love with Christopher Nolan, the way he approaches a movie, except for those 3 movies, but how he usually approaches a movie, I really love. I'm sorry, Tia, I won't let that go.
But you always say, though, in other shows that we do, that as much as you dislike them as Batman films,
They're great films.
they're great movies. So
yeah, great movies about Gotham. Yeah, but they're not good Batman movies. Yeah, but they're good Gotham movies for sure. Like if he was making, like if his movies were like The Show, to where it was about Gotham but not really about Batman, I think I would consider it like the 3 greatest movies ever created. But the fact that it starred Batman, or co-starred, like I like to say, co-starred Batman, it just never felt like Batman, ever. Not once. Not once. But anyway, Christopher Nolan deserves a spot on here. He was on my list, but I had not planned on bringing him up. He was my reserve. So I'm glad you put him on there. People would have killed us if he was not on here. So
yeah. See, I don't know. I just love his storytelling. Juwaan and I will always disagree. I love his Dark Knight films, what he did with Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises. I will always consider, to me, the greatest Batman movies. But again, agree to disagree there. But if you want to throw those away, his work with Memento, Inception, Dunkirk, which was really interesting because he never had approached, say, a quote-unquote, like, real-life historical sort of film before, and I like the way that he did that. And the fact that he decides to use Tom Hardy and Cillian Murphy in pretty much almost everything. I'm a little hurt that neither of them are in Tenet, but that's fine. Tenet, I think, will be a great door for people to kind of open if they are wanting to see Robert Pattinson in something, like, to kind of like get people to stop thinking about Robert Pattinson from Twilight and get them prepared to think of him as Batman. I think that there's no better movie, there's no better time for it to be in Tenet. And then of course, God, what is his name? He's Denzel Washington's son, right? The guy who's going to be the main.
Washington.
Yeah, so it's like, I think those two are going to be obviously the mains in the film, and that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll definitely debate what best Batman movies are out there. No, like I said, Christopher Nolan, not even to be debated. He belongs on this list, not even to be debated. And he does it without superstars. Really think about it. Christian Bale coming off of his project. I think he's become bigger since then, but I don't think he was as big before then.
No, prior to, and I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, prior to that, he was in the Machinist, fabulous movie, by the way. That was really great. But really, besides that, he was in that movie Equilibrium, which is actually the film that Christopher Nolan saw and thought of Christian Bale when he was thinking of Batman. But those were really good movies. Apparently, there was a thing even when Christopher Nolan went to kind of like the higher-ups and said, hey, I'd really like this guy Christian Bale to be Bruce Wayne. People were like, him? Who even knows him? So certainly Christian Bale's career has catapulted since then. But you're right. I mean, even Cillian Murphy wasn't as big of a star as he was. Tom Hardy wasn't. Not a lot of people knew who the hell Tom Hardy was before he became Bane.
Guy Pearce, to a degree, Joseph Gordon-Levitt to a degree.
Yeah.
You can make a case of you could say his 2 biggest names he's worked with are Matthew McConaughey and Leo.
Yes.
Outside of that, I could almost guarantee a majority of the world didn't know the movies before the Christopher Nolan. They didn't know the actors before the Christopher Nolan movies.
Yeah.
And thanks to Christopher Nolan, we found out Daddy Mendelsohn.
Which movie was he in?
Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, shit. Do you know I forget sometimes that that's him? Like, I was like, holy shit. I hated him. He was such an asshole. I was so happy when he died in The Dark Knight Rises.
I rewatched that, and I'm like, I love Ben Mendelsohn. I love him so much. I remember watching that, like, I could barely understand this guy. He sounds like he has like some kind of like southern twang to him a little bit, to where like when he talks, he kind of like trips over himself. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this guy. And then it was like a year later, I was like, I like this guy.
There's something about him. He's very charming. That's
something about him.
That's like, I don't know if I told you, I watched Rogue One for the first time not too long ago, and I was like, Daddy Mendelsohn is there, and it was fantastic. I wanted him to be alive just for the fact of having more Mendelsohn in the Star Wars continuum, but that wasn't happening.
Nah, he super died.
Very poetic, though. He dies by his own weapon. I kind of like that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, huge shouts out to Christopher Nolan. Great pick to you.
Thank you. Juwaan, what is your number 2?
All right, this is my final pick. Excuse me, my final pick is, imaginary drum roll, please. It goes to the one, the only Martin Scorsese.
I knew you were going to put that. I was like, if he hasn't brought out Martin Scorsese yet, Martin Scorsese's coming.
You already know. That's why Christopher Nolan wasn't going to make it on my list. Is that between Martin and Chris? Martin every day. Goodfellas, The Departed, Taxi Driver, Wolf on Wall Street, Raging Bull, Casino, The Irishman, Mean Street, Shutter Island, which does not get enough respect. Great Leo movie. Gangs of New York, The Aviator, Silence, which is horrible, but I have to mention it. The King of Comedy, Hugo. There's just so many movies this man has done. This man shaped me with Goodfellas and The Casino. Casino, I think I could recite word for word.
Really?
Yeah, I
love that.
Love that movie. Goodfellas, Wolf of Wall Street, The Departed. I love those movies so much. I even love The Departed for them bringing awareness to like the fact that there's not many black people in Boston. So when he saw him, he was like, "How did you make it here?" It was like, I know, man. I know. There's not really black people here in Boston. It's like, no, there's not. It's weird. But I love how Martin Scorsese attacks a film. I love how raw and passionate his filmmaking is. And I feel like every movie might seem the same, but it feels different. Like Goodfellas and Casino seem the same, but when you watch them, they feel drastically different. So Martin Scorsese was always going to make it on my list. I just wasn't going to disrespect him by saying him so close to the bottom. I was saving him for my last pick. And Martin Scorsese cannot be argued. It cannot be debated. There is nothing to discuss. Martin Scorsese belongs on this list.
Yeah, you're not going to get any argument from me. Martin Scorsese certainly deserves to be on this list. When you think of great filmmakers, you think of Martin Scorsese. I know I keep saying the whole I recently rewatched, but, we're in quarantine, so there's a lot of rewatching time. So I recently rewatched Goodfellas, and just as good. It definitely stands up to the test of time.
Yeah, well, for sure.
It aged well. And, Martin Scorsese is that type of guy who he also has his kind of cast of people that he likes to use, such as Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, which there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you have a power cast and it works, then it frickin' works. And I like the whole gangster movie genre. That's what he kind of thrives in sometimes. The Departed was crazy. I don't think I saw that movie when it came right out, but then I think I saw it like a couple of years later, and I was like, holy shit. And it kind of made me like Mark Wahlberg, which, now he kind of like does questionable things, and it's like, but I like seeing Mark Wahlberg, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson all be in one film, and the conclusion of that movie in particular. Now, that I wasn't the biggest fan of The Irishman, but I could still say that I saw where Martin was going with that one. And again, Robert De Niro still gave out a good performance, but I think that of course goes to Joe Pesci. He gave the best performance in that frickin' movie.
You mean Pacino?
Hmm?
You mean Al Pacino?
Al Pacino too, yes. Al Pacino and Joe Pesci in The Irishman gave the best performances over Robert De Niro. To me, Robert De Niro, as good as he is, I don't think could outshine Al Pacino and Joe Pesci in it, in my personal opinion. He's disagreeing with me.
I mean, it's hard. Goodfellas, it's a three-way tie between Ray Liotta, De Niro, and Pesci. Then you go Casino. That's a triple threat between Sharon Stone, De Niro, and Pesci. You go Godfather. As much as, we want to lean towards Al Pacino, De Niro did have some really good scenes as a young Don Corleone. But obviously it was Pacino's movie. And then Pacino and De Niro did numerous films together. Heat, A Minute to Kill or 8 Minutes to Kill, something like that, where they were both detectives. They've done a lot of movies together, but I don't know. I really wasn't that blown away by Joe Pesci. I think that was Al Pacino's movie. That was 100% Al Pacino's movie. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. That's tough to you. That's 100% tough. I mean, going through the history of the movies between Pesci, De Niro, and Pacino, oof, that's a tough one. But yeah, Martin Scorsese has his made men, and that's definitely De Niro and Leo. Those are his go-to guys. Which, speaking of the devil, Martin Scorsese's brand new movie coming out is starring Leonardo DiCaprio and De Niro. So yeah, he definitely has his go-to guys, and it seems to be Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio.
I can't believe that Robert De Niro honestly is still acting at this point. You would think, like, dude, why don't you just go retire and enjoy some of your, like, I don't know. I forget how old he is, but I'm kind of like, you're getting up there, dude. Don't you want to, like, relax a little?
If he has kids, I think what he's doing is he's making sure that 6 generations from where he is now, they don't have to worry about money. Like that's like, if you think about it, he's in like a movie a year or like a movie every year, and it's kind of like, I don't think you're supposed to be working that hard, but okay.
Right?
The person that works harder is Samuel Jackson. Like you'll look at Samuel Jackson's filmography and go, I didn't even know 300 of these existed. And it's like, oh, no, they did. He made them, and they went right to DVD. And it's like.
No, with Samuel Jackson, I don't understand how he has the time to do everything. Like, he must not even, to me, it's like actors like that, they must not have homes. They just live out of, like, really fancy hotels. Because literally, what's the point of having a house at that point? Yeah. You're never there.
I was looking forward to the Hitman, it was the Hitman's Bodyguard sequel. That was about his girlfriend. That was originally coming out this year, and I was looking forward to seeing him and Ryan Reynolds together again.
That's right.
Next year. But yeah, the man works religiously. Him and Diddy work religiously. But yeah, Martin Scorsese makes it to the list.
100% Martin Scorsese absolutely deserves to be on this list. I think that it would be one of those things that if we didn't put him there, people would have yelled at us. But Juwaan, we are down to the number one in our top 10 directors here. As I always do, I will go through the ones that we have prior, and then I'll say my number one, and that so. We had number 10, Francis Ford Coppola. Number 9, Steve McQueen. Number 8, David Fincher. Number 7, Bong Joon-ho. Number 6, Quentin Tarantino. Number 5, Tim Burton. Number 4, Ben Affleck. Number 3, Christopher Nolan. Number 2, Martin Scorsese. And number 1 is another director that I feel like if I didn't put on here, we'd also get a lot of flack for. But it's going to be Steven Spielberg. Because when you think of people who have literally shaped filmmaking, you have to think of Steven Spielberg, just because of all the things that he's come out with. I mean, I have his filmography in front of me, and you have Jaws, which was a huge cultural phenomenon, E.T., the Indiana Jones movies. He did The Color Purple, which I think is probably one of the best movies out there. If you've never seen it, that is an incredibly powerful film. Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can, War Horse, Lincoln. He also did Ready Player One. He is coming out with West Side Story, which is kind of weird that they're doing a movie on it, but whatever. But yeah, to me, it's like Steven Spielberg's movies have shaped a lot of our pop culture, a lot of our filmmaking process to begin with. He certainly isn't, I don't believe, to the degree that, say, like Martin Scorsese is, who makes more of films, whereas Steven Spielberg makes more of, like, as I just said, keep saying, like, pop culture movies. It's funny that Steven Spielberg had such a problem with making a movie for Netflix when his movies would be the perfect ones for Netflix, but Martin Scorsese, as like controversial as his comments were about Marvel, is okay with making movies for a streaming service. So it is funny that kind of like duels like that. But yeah, I think that Steven Spielberg, I mean, listen, I grew up on Jurassic Park. Schindler's List is probably one of the most, talked about and critically acclaimed movies of all time, along with a few others that I've just mentioned right before. So to me, I feel like I would be not doing my job if I didn't put him on there. I mean, Saving Private Ryan is also one of like the best movies of all time. So to me, it's like, he's had a lot of movies where, again, they're just kind of like blockbuster films, like the Indiana Jones films, but I couldn't not put him on here. The fact that he did The Color Purple, I didn't even realize that he even directed that. I really like The Color Purple. I watched that a few years ago, and my mom was like, you need to check that out. Whoopi Goldberg is in it, and she is phenomenal, and Danny Glover is just like an absolute monster in it, and I checked it out, and that's a freaking fantastic movie. So yeah, it's going to be Steven Spielberg.
This is where I get canceled by our fan base. I am not a Steven Spielberg fan. I find his movies to be grossly overrated. I hated E.T. I hated Jaws. I hated Jurassic Park.
Oh.
I've never seen The Color Purple. Ready Player One, I really enjoyed. What else did you say? Indiana Jones, I've only seen one of them. I think they're grossly overrated. What else? What else did I see here? Let me see.
My choice of Steven Spielberg just made him that angry. Oh, there you are, Juwaan. I got you.
I'm here. Ready Player One, Saving Private Ryan. That's it. That's all I've ever enjoyed with Steven Spielberg's. That's it.
I mean, listen, you are more than entitled to your opinion. I don't know. Even if you think that, like, okay, so even if you think that movies, say, like Jaws are overrated, the filmmaking process in general still kind of, if we didn't have Jaws, I don't want to say like we wouldn't have a lot of films that we have today, but it's like movies like that kind of helped shape current filmmaking. So even if you think that a movie like Jaws is overrated or a movie like E.T. is overrated, movies like that still have their place in film history and where things like went.
Yeah, my issue is when it comes to filmmaking, to me, I like to know when someone's like, oh, I like the movie. I'm not saying the person has to say, but I like to know what about it did they like? And every time I ask someone about Jaws, they can never answer that. Like, oh, it was just a fun movie. Yeah, but what was fun about it? Like the shark and, I'm like, okay, nothing. Okay, all right, nothing. what's fun about E.T.? Alien, the kid. And I'm like,
I am hurt though that you think that way about Jurassic Park, because I absolutely love Jurassic Park, and I could tell you why I love Jurassic Park. So
I get Jurassic Park more so than I do E.T. and Jaws. I get it. I mean, it's dinosaurs. Who doesn't love dinosaurs? I get it. And I get why he's on the list. I'm not refuting that he shouldn't be on the list. I get it. That's not my argument. I just wanted to make it clear I'm not a fan of Steven Spielberg.
That's perfectly fine. That's the great thing. Like, you don't have to be a fan of every single director. There are certainly directors, like, personally, I would say I'm not the biggest fan of, like, Wes Anderson films. And he's a filmmaker that people really like, and he gets his movies get a lot of buzz surrounding them, but personally I just don't think they're that great. I also will tell you that, and now this is where I get canceled by saying this, I don't think that Greta Gerwig is that great of a director for people to freak out over. I know, there you go. I got canceled there. I don't think she's as fantastic of a director where people have to literally...
Gerwig is a brilliant mind in filmmaking. She has such a unique... Go ahead.
Because she did one movie that's literally been redone like 6 times throughout history. Little Women has been redone like 1,000 times, and she just decided that she was also going to redo Little Women. In a time where it's like, did we really even need that movie?
To be fair, and let me double check this to make sure I'm not talking out of my butt here, because she's done more than just that I've loved. Her filmography as a director. Lady Bird, Little Women, and then I think she's doing the Margot Robbie Barbie movie. That's coming.
Like, who cares about that? I don't know. Like,
of course, I want to see Margot Robbie as a Barbie. Are you serious?
This comes from such a superficial stance,
Tia, I've never lied to you a day in my life.
No.
That is legit the only reason I'll be checking out that movie. But no, I mean, look, I completely respect that. But it goes to exactly what I told you before. She doesn't have that large of a discography, so that's why you could like pick through the one or two, because it's just not that many. But to me, Steven Spielberg, I think a lot of people that love him because of the hype of him.
Yeah.
But to me, if someone wants to have a film conversation with me, then it's going to go down a rabbit hole of me asking you to break down what you like about his movies. But if someone's like, I'm just a casual movie fan and I enjoy his movies, I'll never argue that. I'll never argue.
Well, my thing, like, with Steven Spielberg, and I wanted to say that as opposed to, like, say, someone like Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese comes out with these very story-driven films, which are, Goodfellas and Casino are part of our pop culture, but in a different sense than, say, Steven Spielberg movies are. Like, movies like Indiana Jones, Jaws, Jurassic Park make their way onto pop culture, phenomenons were to the point where, they're selling mugs and t-shirts and this and that. They become these huge, like, staples in the world. And while they're not necessarily really saying a message or saying anything really that deep, although again, Saving Private Ryan, so he's had his movies where he does that, but where Martin Scorsese's movies will always be movies where he's taking like a more serious stance, but also kind of making it a little comical. So the two have two totally different styles, both which make their way into the fabric of our culture pretty much.
It's subjective, and I want to say that a few more times so when people listen to this episode, they don't jump to trying to argue a point that is invalid because I'm acknowledging it. It's all about, it's subjective. It's what the person prefers. But to me, Steven Spielberg only has one movie that's a film, and that's Schindler's List. That's a film. Like, that's a legit film. Martin Scorsese, I feel like, only makes films,
Right.
you could look at it and go, I get why that was nominated. I get why that was nominated. Steven Spielberg, to me, only has one, maybe The Color Purple might be in there. Oh, and Lincoln. So, I mean, those three. Everything else is kind of just like a popcorn film. So I look at it and I kind of go, that's not really for me. I never liked E.T. I always thought that was so stupid. I'm like, what is that? That's so disgusting. It looks disgusting. And Jaws, like, I remember when I saw Jaws, I'm like, this is like forever, and it's like not enough people for the shark to kill. So like I'm just watching a movie of guys on a boat and a shark just like circling the boat. That's why I prefer Deep Blue Sea. Because I'm like, those sharks are killing people like every 5 minutes. Like, that's what I paid money to see. Not just a fin just dun 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 dun. Like,
It
what?
was a suspenseful film. You
spent more time eating the ship, Tia. He spent more time eating the boat than he did people. That's not what I'm here for. So I mean, I just find a lot of his stuff to be grossly overrated. I get Schindler's List. I get Lincoln. I've never seen Color Purple. Never had an interest in seeing Color Purple. It falls under that same thing as 12 Years a Slave for me.
Okay.
So I'm like, I just don't really want to see it. But I understand Lincoln and I understand Schindler's List. Those to me are probably two of the top 100 greatest movies. Just because of the performances that were given in. But everything else, if I never saw it again a day in my life, I'd be completely fine. Completely fine.
Which I completely understand and I respect 100%. I just think as far as like what his films do for the culture, not like the culture, but like, pop culture, and film culture, I think have to be kind of put out there. But I was trying to, I really I don't want anyone listening to this and going, why didn't they put literally any female directors on this list? It's just, I'm not so familiar. So I just wanted to point out, Mary Harron was the director of American Psycho. I've never seen any of her other work, so I can't really, give her that much, not give her that much credit, because American Psycho enough is enough credit, but as even Juwaan was saying, to have more of an extensive body of work to really put on, say, the type of list. But to me, Mary Harron definitely deserves absolutely a nod, because American Psycho is one of my favorite movies of all time. The Hurt Locker was also directed by a woman, Catherine Bigelow. I don't really know what she's done, but The Hurt Locker is freaking great. A movie where I can look past the fact that Jeremy Renner is the main. And I'm going to put one last, Patty Jenkins, just because, again, what she is kind of doing for, say, pop culture in a sense, giving us Wonder Woman. So
I would say you're definitely forgetting somebody.
I'm definitely forgetting someone. Do you know who I'm forgetting? Yes, please tell me. Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I want to put female directors on this list, even as an honorable mention, so that we don't get chewed out. But yeah, even, how do I say her name again?
Ava DuVernay. Okay,
I recently, this whole recently watched thing, and now I feel like a broken record, but I recently watched When They See Us, and that was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I know that she has a ton of other work that, is it's late, so I'm not really thinking of it right now, but I do know that she's going to be behind the New Gods movie, which is going to be really freaking cool. And she's also a huge director as of this moment, and I think that's really cool. So thank you for pointing that out, by the way, Juwaan. People were probably going to be like, why didn't you put Ava DuVernay there? It's I'm sorry, I'm not thinking. I didn't have coffee today.
I will say that's part of our systematic problem that we have to get fixed at some point. The main reason why we didn't have many female directors on here is because there's not enough female directors that get numerous projects, not just one good movie here or one good series there. Right. Martin Scorsese could drop a movie every day of the week and a studio would say, yep, nope, go ahead. I don't think it's I think it's maybe getting easier. I don't think it's always been that easy for female directors. So that's something we have to make sure we're trying to pitch, is the idea of just getting more female directed movies. I know they destroyed A Wrinkle in Time that Ava DuVernay did.
Yeah, that got really bad response.
Right.
Like,
I
really
mean, she
bad.
did Selma. She did uh 13th, the documentary on Netflix. When They See Us, like you said. So I mean, she's had stuff under her belt. It's just we need to get female directors doing more projects, more big name projects, rather than small scale films. So I think once we get to that point, we can kind of look at it a little differently, and we can attack it a lot better and have a full female list one day.
Well, yeah, no, you're completely right. Like, I also wanted to say really quick as an honorable mention, before we wrap up here, even though, say, I'm not, say, the biggest fan of his movies, not that I'm not the biggest fan, I just haven't seen a lot of them, and he has a very particular theme as well. Guillermo del Toro is a huge name in the filmmaking business. I just want to say I was looking at this list, and uh, as you said, it is a systematic thing because not only did we not have any females, but we really didn't have a whole lot of people of color. It's like two. So, that to me wasn't done intentionally at all. It's just what is provided for us. So that definitely needs to be something that is rectified. I believe I saw something where the Academy Awards are going to try to have more diversity. To me, it's one of those things where they say that and they'll do it one year and then the very next year it'll be back to all the same bullshit because that's how it feels like.
It's the same thing as when they implemented that into football, where they're like, you have to interview like at least one or two black head coach candidates.
Yeah.
And we still only have, like, out of 32 teams, like 4 black head coaches. So it's like, kind of seems like it didn't really work.
Well, to me, things always seem like they like revert back. I know this isn't as big, but I remember a couple of years ago there was this campaign where it was like "Ask Her More," and it was about this thing where actresses or female directors would come on the red carpet, and instead of like people asking them like about the film and this and that, where they would ask like the male counterparts, they'd be like, "And who are you wearing right now?" And so like then one year they made this big pitch where they were like, we're not going to ask these female actresses and directors what they're wearing. We're going to ask them about their projects. And they did that. And then the very next year they're like, they're interviewing like Brad Pitt, like, how was this, project for you? What does it say? Blah, blah, blah. Ava DuVernay, what shoes are you wearing? Like shit like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you make a really good point. I will say, part of that I get because it shines a light on a lot of I'm trying to think of the designers that don't usually get any shine. So like the Oscars is like their best chance of like, look, I made this for blah blah blah. So it's more of like you're putting on this designer, but where it becomes problematic is they'll legit ask you like who you're wearing. You'll tell them, and they go, "I love it. All right, have a good night. Good luck tonight."
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? That's all you wanted to ask me? It's like, oh yeah, no, that was it. Who are you wearing? Go sit down. So that's where it becomes a problem. But I do get why it became popular is because it was helping out. Like not everyone can be Vera Wang.
And I completely get that. Like absolutely.
A lot of up and comers. So I get that, but it to a point it was kind of like, all right, tell me who you're wearing. You can go. And it's like, no, I wanted to talk about my mood. No, go. So no, I agree with you. That is a systematic thing that needs to be changed also.
Yeah, 100%. But either way, I do love our list. Just getting to talk about the people behind the camera who really are responsible for making some of the greatest movies of all time. So before we wrap up here, Juwaan, is there anything that you'd like to promote? I know that you recorded a ton of podcasts today, so you are probably so tired of talking. You're going to get off here, and I believe you live with your mom, right, or your aunt or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's going to try and talk to you, and you're going to be like, nah, stop. Nope, I don't feel like talking right now.
I'm going to sleep right after this. Like right after hanging out with you, I'm going to sleep. Please stay tuned for Dom has 2 interviews coming up this week. I'll allow Kanan to promote that further. But he does have that coming along. Stay tuned. Tia will be reviewing a few episodes of Doom Patrol, and we'll be having her breakdown for that. We just did Star Wars Saturday. We did Geek Vibes Live a few days ago. We have a lot of content coming you guys' way, a lot of really good interviews, a lot of interviews that are already out there. And also me and AJ broke down the reveal for the PS5 and some of its exclusive games also on GVN Review. So check those out. And also, obviously, because you're listening to it now, but thank you for tuning in to Top 10.
Yes, absolutely. On top of that, Marty has an interview that we'll be promoting soon. Super excited about Doom Patrol, obviously. And in general, we at Geek Vibes Nation just love to provide content for everyone, whether it be reviews, news articles, opinion pieces. You can, of course, find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Vero, YouTube. We are everywhere and anywhere. All you have to do is search Geek Vibes Nation. And of course, you can find all of that at geekvibesnation.com. Please make sure that you subscribe to us, like us, and let us know who are some of your favorite directors out there. Juwaan, thank you again for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. And anyone who's listening, have a great rest of your day.